Un certain nombre de gènes, de pesticides et d'hormones de croissance.
Ladies and gentlemen, here in the room, colleagues, the thousands on the screens, welcome to this week's, or the 11th of September, STOA meeting. I specifically would like to welcome the new Director B, Foresight and Impact Assessment, Kaius Hagelstam. So the new boss of the Secretariat, in practical terms, to explain that colleagues who are not so familiar with titles in the European Parliament's administration, so welcome. Just for the formalities, you have seen in the first one in the agenda, the draft agenda is your dossier. Is there any questions about the agenda? So it's, if not, it's deemed adopted. Then agenda point 2, the draft minutes for the STOA panel meeting on the 10th of July. Me always telling the old joke that you have thoroughly read it. Are there any kind of reflections to that? I don't see that, so they are deemed approved as in the file. Then we go to agenda point 3, the future planning, the STOA workshop proposal, the role of social science and humanities in R&I. The STOA's first Vice Chair, Lina Gávez-Munoz, proposes a workshop on the role of social science and humanities in R&I to be held in autumn. Further details are in the workshop proposals under Annex 3.1, which you had been reading this morning when you had coffee. So I would like to invite members to comment that, or perhaps Lina. Otherwise, we would then approve that proposal. Any comments on that? Perhaps Lina? No? Then in practical terms, if nobody is really jumping out of his seat, the panel approves the proposal as accepted. Then there's a call for proposals for new studies and events for the first half of 2026, considering the good ongoing process of the projects, also, which you might have read then with your morning coffee in Annex 3.1. The Secretary proposes a launch of a call for proposals for STOA studies and events for the first half of 26. In addition to individual MEPs, also committees can submit proposals. The deadline for submitting proposals with the STOA project proposal from Annex 3.2.2 is foreseen for the 29th of September. The decisions on the upcoming priorities based on the Secretariat's evaluation for the proposals can be finalized in one of the upcoming panel meetings. So in practical terms, that means you have time till the 29th of September to propose new stuff. Any discussion on that or brilliant ideas which flow to you during your morning coffee? No? Then you have time till the 29th to suggest new proposals. Then, in formal terms, the panel approves the proposal, and we can go on to the STOA MEP Scientist Pairing Scheme. This year's MEP Scientist Pairing Scheme is organized together with the European Research Council. The panel members are invited to host one of the distinguished researchers and ECR grantees for 1 or 2 days between the 11th and the 13th of November. Further information, you might have read it, about the initiative is in Annex 331. So what the protocol makes me say, but that is really an intention that I have. We strategically, but on purpose, had been deciding this time to do the pairing scheme with ERC grantees. I think it's a very good idea because we are going to start to negotiate Horizon. There's substantial interest in that. I mean, these are really brilliant people. That is really our shining instrument. And really, I would like to urge members that you indicated to the Secretariat with whom you might be willing. I mean, you don't have to spend all 2 days with them, including going to the toilet, but you know, I mean, these are serious people and they take an interest in our work, and I would really appreciate if members would then take over to host someone for 2 days. And I think if we want to have an outreach also in terms of the upcoming discussion about the New Horizon program, I think that is one of the good opportunities to do so. So in parallel, the pairing scheme, a joint STOA ERCR event will take place in the EP on the 12th November of 2025. And the topic is From Science to Policy, Shaping a Sustainable and Competitive Europe. The members of the panel are invited to participate as speakers in one of the 3 thematic sessions: 1, Rethinking Growth and Prosperity; 2, Clean and Sustainable Energy; and 3, Water Resilience. And the program is also laid down in the Annex 333. Also, my plea, we set up, let's say, conversations and discussions about these topics, and so participation would be very welcomed, specifically because, I mean, all these issues are really related to our work. And, for example, on the water issue, which might not had that kind of public perceptions as the growth and the clean and sustainable energy topic, this will be geopolitically one of the most important issues. And in practical terms, we're setting up in these days a KIC on water with a budget of between 500 and 700 million euro. We had new regulations on that. On the other hand, it might be one of the most prosperous new issues for industry. And geopolitically, I don't have to tell you what is happening in Africa. So water is related to migration, for example. If you look to the Niger, which has just 1/3 of its water left, and I mean, you can imagine if that water scarcity goes on like that, the next migration wave is going to come to roll towards Europe and the rest of the world. So I think it's really interesting issues, and I would like to advocate or to ask you to join this meeting. Then the STOA workflow events update. The members find an updated workflow for upcoming events in the folder. The next upcoming events are the STOA workshop Long COVID, Current Realities, Future Directions. That's on Tuesday, the 30th of September. And then the STOA Roundtable, Securing European Data Sovereignty, Evaluating Global Dependencies, Risk, and the European Response. That's on Wednesday, October 1st. And that is, I mean, you can read yourself. I mean, you're grown-up politicians, but I'm pretty much rereading that to you because I would like to ask you if time makes it possible to join, because, I mean, this is really also how we represent our work to the outside. Then the point 4 of the agenda, the pre-study presentation. Today we have an impact on a study on the expected impact of development for automated vehicles in the EU. The lead panel member is Pier Francesco Maran. And I think without further delay, I would like to give the floor to you. I just want shortly to introduce the authors. Exceptionally, the presentation today does not refer to a report that has been finished, but on the contrary, it marks the launching of a study. The presentation will introduce the topic and its actual situation, justifying this work, and discussing the intended scope and methodology to be used in the proposed analysis. The ensuing Q&A session, ensuing Q&A session will serve to make clarifications as required and collect feedback that will be used during the elaboration of the corresponding report. So it's a little bit of a new exercise. Because we had that discussion that sometimes when the report had been presented, there was all of a sudden a methodology discussion evolving, and that brought us then in a little bit delicate discussion that we want to keep the independence of the ones doing the report. And so by clarifying or defining a little bit what is the expectations upfront, on the one hand, we avoid that we try to influence the outcome of studies, but on the other hand, we reflect a little bit that the methodology, which is or reflecting the methodology or the expectations helps, I think, then the experts to deliver studies which are sufficient for the interest of the members. So having said that, the study had been requested by Pier Francesco Maran, and I give him the floor to introduce our elaborate speakers and his idea behind that all.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our two experts for being here today. I had proposed this study at the end of 2024, and today it is more relevant than ever. And I think also it's a good follow-up of our visit at ISPRA that gave us some question, maybe not answer, but question for our expert. Because autonomous vehicles are not science fiction, they are a reality today. And as we speak, thousands of driverless vehicles are going around in many cities across the world. And now we are seeing the development of two big models of autonomous vehicles in the other continent. The US model is mostly private transport, robotaxi, few companies with many cars in a few cities, with a state-level legislation. On the other hand, Chinese model is mainly a private transport with 4 or 5 players with many cars in many cities, national-level legislation, government support. So one question is, what could be an European model in this context? Over the past months, I have organized conferences and met with many operators in the industry after a call for proposal. They all say the same things. Europe needs to change gear or it will stay behind. Some first things are changing. Earlier this year, the European Commission presented the Automotive Action Plan, and the first point relates to autonomous and connected mobility. Now the EU is working to develop a large-scale test beds and to update the regulation. But as far as I understood, the main problem is connecting to funding, not rules. It's an expensive technology, and we have few private investors on one end, and on the other end, we split public money in many small projects. And I have the feeling that we have a great prototype at the university. When there is, for example, university competition on driverless car, European university win, but we can't scale up. But it's no more time for prototypes as far as we see. So what should a European model for autonomous mobility look like, and how should it be developed? A point could be on rules, because many efforts concentrate from developing autonomous gradually from level 1 to level 5. Probably, we were saying before, this is connected on the fact that we talk mainly with manufacturers, and manufacturers have this approach and these needs for their market. But the autonomous vehicles are running in USA and China are not belonging to manufacturers, but from IT companies that invest there. So it's the same topic, or they are brothers or cousins, I'd say. Probably they are cousins, and they need different rules if we want to be competitive in cars without drivers. Is still time for Europe to point on that, or it's too late? We should open the market to other technologies, and how to approve that, in order to give customer services, or we can slow down a little and wait local European technologies that can be competitive. This is one of the question I think we have to give you. So how will European streets look like in 10, 15, or 20 years with mass deployment of autonomous vehicles? And who will be? And what impact can we expect the deployment of autonomous vehicles to have more broadly on a European society? We need technology and sensors on road, as somebody say, or the car is autonomous. This is a point because many national states are investing on sensor on the street. So the legislator need to understand some future trend, and it's not easy. I started 6 months ago studying the points, and now I have different opinions from the beginning. And I hope after your study to change again. So, our expectation is that Europe will not be just a place to use services, but to give services. Probably the idea of the connection among autonomous driving and public transport could be one European issue because it's part of our history of public transport. But it's another point because how can you, first, we are not so ready to authorize a car without a driver, but a bus without a driver and 100 people on, it's much complicated, but probably this is our street. So I have many expectations on your study, and I wish you can help us to accelerate and give us some ideas on the direction we have to take. Thank you.
Thank you before that, because then I take over the formal part, which is good for boring Germans. So I would like to welcome Werner Huber, the two authors of the study, and I would like to mention the first one not being present is Michael Botsch. He's professor of vehicle safety and signaling processing with the Department of Electrical Engineering of the Technische Hochschule in Ingolstadt, so in the heart of the German car industry. Professor Botsch is a scientific director of the Research Institute AI Motion Bavaria. And our guest of today, and I welcome you specifically to the Parliament and to the STOA, is Werner Huber, heads the Institute of Automated Driving of the Technical University in Ingolstadt, CARISMA, which is a nice name for whatever kind of endeavor. He's also a co-founder of T-Rex GmbH. Werner Huber brings experience from his previous roles at the BMW Group and the BMW Forschung und Technik, so research and technology, and holds a PhD in engineering from the Technical University of Munich. So I think we found really an expertise and two authors of a study who couldn't be closer to, I think, the realities. But before I'm singing the tune all too long, I give the floor to you, Mr. Huber.
Thank you very much, Stella, for introduction. My name is Werner Huber, and I want to give you our idea on the study of the expected impact of the deployment of automated vehicles in Europe. The topics are just a small introduction. The speaker are already introduced, but our environment, our technological environment in Ingolstadt, I just want to show you a little bit. Then let me say a few words about the current state of automated driving and the need for the study, and then the methodology we decided now for to do it, and your feedback is very welcome. We are at the point of start now. One word, I was more than 20 years at BMW. In the last 4 years, the whole time I did work on smart infrastructure, on traffic technology, and on driver assistance systems. And my last 4 years in the BMW research have been the development of a self-driving car, from the software and the hardware to test it on the motorways between Munich and Ingolstadt. And 10 years ago, I decided to leave BMW and to go in the scientific work and change to the University of Ingolstadt. The Charisma, Mr. Ehler just mentioned it, is our home base. It's located on the campus in Ingolstadt. It's the so-called Center of Automotive Research on Integrated Safety Systems and Measurement Area. That's the acronym. And we launched it 2016. That was the time when I changed to Ingolstadt, so one of the professors of the first hour there. In our institute, Charisma is divided in 3 institutes. One is the Institute of Automated Driving, CIA it's called. It contains a lot of laboratories. From the one hand, we do a lot of work with simulation. You can't do everything in the real world. But we also have a big outdoor test bench where we can try out the functionalities of automated driving. I will show you a small film. To that, we have this Navia shuttle, you see, which will be operated from January in a small district of Ingolstadt and on the campus. And we have the test field Ingolstadt, which is more or less a living laboratory where we installed a lot of infrastructure sensors to learn about how can we help the autonomous car to get information from the infrastructure to be able to decide on what is doing in the traffic. Here's a film I want to show. It's our outdoor test track. We are operating that with driving robots. There is no driver in no car. We are using that and just showing you what we are doing there. The cars are controlled from a center, from a control center, which is also located there. You see the car approaching an intersection, and the e-scooter driver is violating the red light, and there is a critical situation. He's not seen by the car, and he is coming out from these parking cars, and that's why we are using those kind of infrastructure-based sensors, which are detecting from different perspectives this situation, deciding about the criticality of the situation, and send information to the car. Be careful, somebody is getting into the lane, and the car should brake. We're also working with bad weather situations, spray situations, which are affecting the sensors. Also, the rain, heavy rain, is a big problem for cars, for the car sensors. As we as human beings, they don't see really what's going on. Radar is a good sensor for that, but an optical sensor like a camera is very limited in detecting anything. And this is what we are researching on. What sensor setup could be the best, maybe also the cheapest, for getting all the information to perceive everything what's going on in the traffic. And additionally, we are using infrastructure-based sensors to complete the situation detection. The current state of automated driving, Mr. Maran told about the different levels of automated driving. I suppose you know it, but for those who are not familiar with that, I just will repeat it a little bit. We have 3 levels of automated driving, which are not very critical. For nobody, it's level 1, level 0, level 1, and level 2. Why is it not critical? Since it's covered with the actual regulation. The driver is supported by a technical system. No system, which means level 0, he's just get maybe an information about the allowed speed, and he decides for itself what he's doing. Level 1, that means one of the 2 physical driving tasks of the driver, which is steering, this is the lateral control, and accelerating braking, which is the longitudinal control, is taken over by a technical system. Adaptive cruise control, for example, but the driver has to do the second task for itself. This is not very critical since the driver is directly involved in driving. Only one lateral or longitudinal control is taken over by the car. It's a little bit more critically, if you go to level 2, which is now standard in the smart car in Europe, that means steering and braking and accelerating is taken over by the car. So the driver has to observe his car, but he's responsible for everything. He has to decide to intervene if something happens, and so he's more or less observing his technical system. And this is a little bit problem now at the side of the manufacturers. They don't. They have a little fear to jump over this red fence. And so they are inventing level 2, level 2 plus, level 2 plus plus, which is always a little more of automation in the car, but they keep the driver in the responsibility. Yeah? And so you understand if the system is more and more doing for you, you're getting bored more and more, and you're not aware maybe what happens. But the responsibility, if anything happens, is at the driver.
Simply rid of your lawyers.
So, yeah. Yes. And the next step is then the level 3 in this category of automation. The driver the task of observation is in specific situations is gone from the driver to the system. That is what, for example, is now launched at Traffic Jam Assist, where the car is up to 60 kilometers per hour going through a traffic jam, and the driver can do anything. But level 3 means enough time to take over is necessary. We talk about 10 seconds to get the driver back into the driving task. If the traffic jam is over, the car is accelerating, and the driver is doing nothing, then the car would stop. Since for more, the car is not approved. This is level 3, and I think the first cars, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, now at the IAA, they showed the level 3 system up to 95 kilometers per hour, which is also covered by legislation. Level 4 means more responsibility at the side of the car. There is no takeover request anymore necessary. The car is doing the job of driving for the specific situation completely. And there is no driver who has to be warned and to take over the situation. No, the car is doing the job for a specific, let me say, for a specific motorway or at the parking slot or wherever the operational design domain defined where the car is able to operate and where not. And the level 5 is the so-called robotaxi. There is no driver necessary anymore. The car picks you up, the car gets you out. You have to do nothing. You're just a passenger in the car without any possibility to intervene. And when this is the SAE, taxonomy, and in Germany, 15 years ago, we started to doing the ZEMO as part of this group to define it for Germany. It's a legislative categories which are defining what happens from the legal point of view to driver or manufacturer if anything happens. The need for the study. We have on my opinion, a relative robust legal situation in Europe. The Automated Driving System Regulation 1426 was adopted in 22, supplemented by the ITS Directive 2661 in November. So it's the framework, the legal framework is growing, and that is good. I'll just give you a small follow-up of that later. And now we have to see what's going on in the scenery. What is developed? What is the technology? How will technology be on the road in the future? Or what are the reasons why it's not in that velocity as we expected? Now, what is the latest technological development in automated vehicle we want to analyze? Then we want to have a small overview about the actual and future direction of the EU legislation. We want to assess the current level of the driving technology with regard to a deployment in 5, 10 or 15 years. And we want to reflect it to the European model of autonomous driving. Mr. Moran said that's typical the way how can we use public transport as one area for introducing autonomous vehicles faster. The relevant legislations just shown for you as a small summary. I just will jump over relatively quickly. Everything started with the Vienna Convention on road traffic, which is all about controllability. The driver of a car has to control that what he is moving through the traffic. That's very important. And this is also relevant for autonomous cars. But how? Then we have the ITS directive in 2010. We have an amendment of the Vienna Convention where it was discussed how can an automated driving fulfill the Vienna Convention to be responsible for that, what a robot is moving through the traffic. We have the EU regulation on general safety, very, very important, and it was, in our opinion, the first explicit opening for automated and autonomous driving in Europe in 2019. Then the so-called UNECE regulations, different ones, for example, here the 155, which is on cybersecurity, very important since every autonomous car is also a connected car. Yeah? It's always connected, so it could be attacked. And the 156, which is software update management, it's relevant for the actual car development. We call it software-defined vehicle, where the connectivity to a cloud is part of the development. There is also some functionalities from the car could be made in the cloud, and the cloud calculates big data masses and sends results to the car. So it's not only everything in the car. There is also the digital environment part of the car. Then we have the EU regulation 1426, which was the advanced driving system type approval framework. Very important. This was a first concrete regulation that enables the type approval of fully driverless vehicle. So it's very important to have that done, since it's the basic framework. And the amendment of the ITS directive, which creates the digital ecosystem which is necessary around the car, since the car alone is not, it will be in the future not only the part of deciding. There is also digital infrastructure necessary, which will be part of this transportation. What is the state in the other regions? Also, Mr. Moran told a little bit. China, it's very strongly supported by the government, and in the meantime, they have a lot of cities which are issued licenses for road testing of level 4 AVs. Level 4 AVs, we remember. Driver is sitting in the car, but the car is driving for itself. There are also commercial operations from Baidu and Inceptio. And in the United States, you know about the big tech companies which are pumping a lot of money into Waymo and all these digital cars. They are not car producers. They are not coming from a safe development of cars. They are coming from the computer side and bringing four wheels on the computer, and it's a complete different perspective, and with a lot of money it works. Also, we see in the United States that freight traffic in future will be maybe done by level 4, level 5 cars, but if you see the long distances, for example, Nevada, there is nothing which can happen. You can drive the car like on a straight road without anything through the desert. In Europe, we have a complete different situation in our road network and in the traffic volumes and everything. So different regions, different environments, different solutions, but I think we can learn and also find a European way which could be also specific. New technological developments we want to address or we want to consider is, on the one hand, artificial intelligence. And we have a strong community of artificial intelligence, I think, in Europe. There is specifically the so-called end-to-end learning is one of the approaches they are doing. That means you have a mass of data in the car from sensors and you decide how you drive. And in between, there might be a black box. You can't really not really know what's going on, but this is what now is coming up. In the last 10, 20 years in the robotic and in the driver assistance systems, we had a perception system, we had the decision system, and we have actors, and we did really deterministic. We did know what happens. The end-to-end learning is a complete new approach. A lot of data and a decision in the car, okay, turning right, turning left, brake, making anything. But this is possible since the so-called SDVs, the software-defined vehicle, is approaching. That means a change in the thinking in the automobile industry to reduce the big landscape of 100 control units to 1, 2, 3, or 4 main computers. And the software is integrated on that computers. That means a cultural change at the manufacturers. And it's, on my opinion, the start of having big data possibilities in the car, huge computing power in the car to connect the car to the back end and to exchange data from back end to exchange to update the car over the air to have it more like a smartphone. This is one important technological development. The actual International Automotive Fair in Munich is showing what happened there. And smart infrastructure. In Europe, we have relative fragmented digital infrastructure. Okay, we have a 5G network, which is covering the whole Europe. But if you go to specific points, there are different solutions. But using sensors in the traffic, as done in China, where motorways for long kilometers are equipped with sensors detecting what's going on there, could be one solution for operating autonomous cars in the future. Not everywhere, but on specific points where it's necessary, where high criticality is given, then it's a good technology to help to bring autonomous cars on the road, but with really not all over the European countries, just on specific points. What isn't digital infrastructure? I just want to show our example in Ingolstadt. You see this post on the left side. At a height of 4 meters, there are thermal cameras. You see the picture here, which is black and white, depending on the heat of the object. And on the 7-8 meters, you see laser scanners, which are circulating with a lot of laser points, detecting the road within let me say, an environment of around 50 to 70 meters. And I just gave you a small video, which is the thermal cams. You see this guy here bicycling into the traffic, and now here he gets it's in a critical situation by this right-turning car. And in our infrastructure, we see that situation upcoming, and we also take the data from the laser scanner, which is the second film, please. You see this white the white arrow, this is the bicycle driver, and then the car gets into his way in right turning. And so we have two independent sensor systems in our perception, and we fuse the data, and within a few hundred milliseconds we can decide if it's a critical situation or not. And this is just here for a safety application, but you can imagine that knowing about coverages, knowing about what's going on, an autonomous car sees the environment only from its point of view, very low. And if it gets also data from the infrastructure, so it can decide much more robust on how to behave. Let me go to the methodology. We have agreed on three main pillars. One is a comprehensive review of existing literature. That means on EU programs, on legislation, on what's going on in the community of automated driving, and we want to filter the relevant literature out of that. Then identification, as I told you, of the major technological developments. What is coming up? How can it affect in the future the operation of automated vehicle? What is the potential of the new technology for introducing that kind of autonomous cars? And we want to rely also on interviews, semi-structured interviews where we have a rough questionnaire and select some specific guys. I have a list in the presentation, first list of experts we want to ask from different fields of application or policy, how they see the future of this autonomous car and the problems of introduction. I want to go not too deep in the list of potential experts. You have it in your slides, but there are some very interesting guys here. A lot of them we know personally, and based on that, we want to have a foresight analysis on the impact, which is based on different scenarios, and there could be scenarios is a closed description of the future, which is logical, and one could be a rigid regulation following the cautionary principle, or another one could be the fragmented regulation by EU member states. Everyone is doing its own regulation, and we will see what happens. Maybe then it's complicated that everything works together, or some kind of a flexible, unified regulation. This could be the three scenarios, but we will discuss on that. Then, based on that, in the final part of the study, we will address policy areas and elaborate policy actions for that areas. There could be the policy area technological focus and social impact. What happens if on the technological focus? What is if we take focus on the legislation, or what is it? Would it be necessary to have much more R&D support in the future? For example, large-scale field trials across Europe based on one technological approach. But this needs a strong administration who decides what's going on and whatnot. We are now, every car manufacturer, every university, as we're told, has its own ideas, makes a project, makes a European project with European partners. 5 million are away, and the result is relative. That's at the moment the problem we have. So maybe a huge project where the most promising technological approaches are integrated, and a cross-border operation is maybe the bigger field trial in Europe. Okay, thank you. That would be the ideas now to start the study in the next weeks, and thank you for your attention, and for sure the feedback is welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have the full attention of the room, because it's also very close to the private living reality of members. I might start with a question, and then please show me. Okay, so would you like to start, Mr. Maran?
I think it's a good base to work. We mentioned and we didn't talk about funding then in the study, so I don't know if we can add evaluation on that in some way. It could also be helpful for us, because we are in a moment before the new budget. So some information about that could be helpful to understand what can we do, maybe more on American side than Chinese, where public budget is unaffordable for us. But maybe the idea of which percentage of support in a project could be corrected by the public sector, it could help us. My opinion is that we should reduce the number of projects we support to 3, 4, 5 at maximum. But how much money, for example, I don't know.
I think the European program it's a lot of money available for funding projects at the moment. If we see the Horizon 2020, which was a lot of millions, but the projects are very fragmented. They are limited more or less to 5 million in the CCAM sector, and so you have 20, 30 projects with 5 million. Yeah, and you have 20 or 30 different groups which are working on that, and they are following not the same strategy. They are trying out. Okay, that's allowed in a research. You have to try out something since to come to a conclusion what is good or what is bad. But the money, the entire money is split in too many projects. They are competitive to each other. Also, that is allowed in a scientific work to be competitive, but sometimes you have to align. You have to bring things together, and I think here we have no no council which is deciding what is the strategic way for Europe. Do we need more digital infrastructure, other parts of infrastructure, and not asking, do we need another technology for that? No, to decide these are the main technological pillars for automated driving in the future, and this is a strategic way of the European, or the strategic European way, and we want to have it in the, for example, in the public transport, 50% of that, to support one or two projects which are bigger, maybe 50 million or 100 million. More partners, but all the partners under one strategic roof. That could be one example. I know it's very complicated, and I know also the situation is for the universities is good to have to compete with each other and to say, oh, we have this project, you have that project, we're doing completely different thing, and under the, let me say, under the coverage of scientific, it's allowed, but we need to have more decisions on what could be the way and how can we bring all these forces together. It's not the problem of money, I think.
Okay, may I start? I just have, and I think in principle terms, you had been covering everything what you had been, by everything you had been saying about the methodology, the scope. What, just to sharpen that a little bit, I mean, one of the aspects you had been comparing the European situation to the technology, to some extent to the regulatory situation in China and in America. Given the the U.S. trade agreement, and given this, the practice of a more or less mutual agreement on standards on the car sector between the United States, that was before even the trade agreement. I mean, I think it would be good to highlight a little bit the consequences, because we still believe that we are going to decide on a standard and this is it. But it could be that easily the Americans are pretty much saying, based on also the technology, which doesn't need that infrastructure, it's much more computer-driven and on this visualization technologies that the Americans are pretty much saying, as a consequence of the U.S. trade agreement, there is a mutual agreement foreseen for the car sector, and now they're saying, okay, whatever you do with your complicated infrastructure and so, we have the right to bring our technology in the market. Otherwise, it's a non-tariff trade barrier, and so. But that would then most likely shatter all questions of investments in infrastructure and so, because if American cars can, based on a, let's say, low-level technology brought into the market, I mean, then forget about the European complexity. So it would be interesting not to compare China, Europe in terms of their own regulatory framework. It would be also interesting to have a look to the implementations of the trade situation, because I mean the trade agreement foresees mutual recognition of standards, and they have a completely different standard system. They have tons of standards, and the American car industry invents their standards themselves, where we were following ISO and so. So that would be, because I think it's very relevant for our most recent work. Second aspect is, I mean, yet again, the liability question. I mean, if you bring into the market, as Tesla had been doing that, and you kill someone, that costs you in America because you don't have the precautionary principle, but the liability is robust. So it costs, I think, one